Welcome to another episode of NextGenDDS. This is one of your hosts, Mario Santiago, and with me I have Dr. Scott Menaker. Scott, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, it's always fun.
Yeah, we're excited.
These discussions are super as we're really trying to help young dentists kind of figure out this very confusing path. Mm-hmm. It's a great path, but it's not a straightforward. It can zigzag, and we're just trying to help make it as straight as we can for them.
Yeah, and today what we'll focus on, as we've alluded to a lot, is dentists wear many hats, right? They're the dentist, they're the owner, they're the
main producer.
The producer, the office manager a lot of the times. And the topic for today, the head of HR.
Ouch.
And that's probably the part, Scott, that it's funny because as doctors go through their careers, get towards retirement, there's one common theme that's not the most fun to deal with, and it's the HR issues in a practice. If people could offload that, they really wish they could, and we'll talk about it today. You can offload some of it, but the reality of it is that's a big part of your job that you're going to have to just learn how to handle throughout your career. But let's talk today about the role of HR in a practice and really how it has evolved, Scott, because I think you and I were talking, HR used to be a lot different 30 years ago than it is now.
Sure, no doubt about it. Getting your staff, as you alluded to, Mario, which is key is you got to get the right staff on your team. And if you don't do that, you're doomed. You really won't. You'll underproduce. You'll have more problems. You'll lose your hair. It'll turn gray hair a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
And you won't keep the rest of your staff. I used to always allude to it and said, my staff, I had a great staff. I took great care of them. I offered great benefits. I took great care of them personally and professionally. But they protected me as well. And if there was a bad staff person, we made a bad hire, they would typically they would let you know, and they would almost could get that person would want to basically leave because they just didn't fit in and feel welcome. But so that's one component of this. But the other part is how do you protect yourself as a young dentist in the HR world? And today, again, 40 years ago, it was not what it is today. I remember my first HR manual was probably one page. And it had said, here's the office hours, here's what I'm going to pay you, here's the benefits, you're entitled to a week of vacation. When I tell you, you can take it, and if you're sick, you get like 2 sick days a year, whatever it was. I mean, it was just, and that was really it. And we'll do, and I'll provide you with uniforms. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Fast forward till the end of my career, we had outsourced this to a company, a professional HR company. We'll talk a lot about that. And that manual was online, and I don't know, probably 60, 70 pages, encompassing lots of other things that just didn't exist.
Yeah.
And again, part of the reason of doing this is protecting yourself.
Got it.
So in North Carolina, it's what we call an at-will state. We used to maybe think it was just I hire you, you work for me as long as I want you to work for me, and then you're gone. And it's still somewhat that, but the rules have changed a bit. But if you just weren't fitting in, I could kind of fire you, and you can still kind of do it, but you got to have. Today's world is a whole lot different.
Yeah, and we talked about that in the legal episode, Scott.
Sure.
But if you're going to terminate someone, it's probably best to hire an employment attorney and walk you through exactly what to say, what to not say, because we've seen it backfire on people getting sued for, like you said, various different things nowadays.
It could be,
we're not saying if it's right or wrong.
That's
we're just
right.
saying, look, sexual discrimination, religious
age
discrimination, age discrimination. You have
gender,
to be. Yes.
It's all of these things that you're not providing me with a safe environment. What does that mean? So there's all of this, and part of that goes into you've got to have, and if you're buying an older dentist practice, I would imagine there's probably not a sophisticated, or I'll even call it an adequate HR policy and an HR manual. You know, what is the policy for vacation? You better have it written, right?
Yeah.
What's the policy for sick days? My child got very sick and I had to take a month off. Personally, you have all the empathy in the world, but you're also protecting a business.
Well, that's good about having it in writing, Scott, because it applies to all the staff members, right? You're being fair with everybody. If you don't have something in writing, people could see it as like, oh, you treated X employee better than the other employee, and it could be up to interpretation. So like you said, it's probably meant to protect you. And
you want to talk about if you're providing, we talked about health insurance recently. Well, that needs to be spelled out so that it's not based on, oh, I'm older and I wasn't eligible for it, and you're providing this stipend to somebody else that I didn't get it, and how is that all occurring? I just did one with a doctor, and she was going to start with this practice. She wasn't working enough to qualify for benefits. She wasn't working 30 hours yet, so she wasn't getting health insurance. And we went, whoa. How do we get some money? And so they didn't want to give it as a stipend. They wanted to they had to talk to their people to figure out how to do it the right way. Basically, we increased her pay a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was a safer way to go do it. But you want to make sure that you're encompassing all of that.
Well, on that note, Scott, I think there's different topics here, but in terms of HR, how did you feel like you could incentivize employees to do different things? So, for example, nowadays, if we work with a practice and the hygiene department isn't working how it should be, or maybe the new patient numbers aren't where they should be, we might help a lot of practices develop bonus systems. How did you historically incentivize employees through different bonuses or metrics?
And there's different ways and different compensation models. And again, you got to be careful. I always was for me, a bonus system, and we had them, and it was. And I kind of went up and down with them.
Yeah.
There's different ways to do them. And sometimes it was, I realized, I was getting hosed on it.
Yep.
Because, we had a great month and there was a great bonus, and the next month was down. And I went, oh crap, my pay had to go down. And I realized I paid it out in bonuses. So again, you want to have, if you want to, in an HR policy, you want to have that spelled out. You want to have it reviewed, make sure that it is fair. Do you want to compensate all of the staff for reaching bonus? I thought that was kind of a piece. But if you're incentivizing your hygienists based on production and collections, nothing wrong with that, but that should be part of their, there's the structure that they've got to go do.
Yeah.
And you want to have it all spelled out. So originally, as we were talking earlier, we really didn't have an HR policy because it wasn't needed.
Yeah.
Today there is one, and we outsourced it, and there are companies out there that are doing it.
What did they do for you, Scott?
So they're basically making sure, one, you have a policy that is legal in a way, and that it protects you. And there's a number of good companies out there. We'd used, a couple. I think Bamboo HR was one we had used for a while. Again, I'm not recommending it. It was one we found.
Yeah.
Ben Erickson was another big one, and they were just in the HR dental business. Again, we keep talking about dental specific kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because they understand the dental world. They understand the whole thing, but they understand it. And so we literally outsourced it. And even at the end of my career, we got, my partner and I ended up partnering and selling the bulk of our practice to a DSO, a very small boutique one that was going to let us be. But they've got a whole HR policy and an onboarding system.
And that's what's probably so different nowadays, right, Scott? You got the private dentist with 6 employees competing with the DSO that has probably videos to watch or training manuals for HR, and you probably didn't have that stuff.
No, but we did when we did have this company at the end of my career before we partnered with them that was doing a lot of this stuff for us, and there was a manual, and our office manager was going through it extensively there. So there was an onboarding. It wasn't, hey, you start on Monday.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm going to pay you. It was, all right, here's the policies. We would even do training during the course of the year we would go take a couple lunch hours and go, we're going to watch the sexual discrimination policy, you know, and it was just documented, and they had to sign that they were aware of what that was. You know, all of this was just talking, you know, through these are just things that you just have to have in today's world. And there's companies that you can outsource it to, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do those things, but you're protecting yourself so that should something happen, doesn't mean you might not get sued.
Yeah.
It does mean that you've just tried to protect yourself as best that you can.
What about on the hiring side, Scott? How did you handle hiring, and how has that evolved?
Yeah,
over
again,
time?
same kind of thing. You know, before it was, you know, they may have come in with a resume. We looked at it. We used to be able to call the old you know, the let's say
reference?
the references,
Yeah.
and back in the day, you could freewheel. You know, they were great. Here's why. Or they left. It was a great thing. This is why they were not a good employee. Today, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can say, yes, they work for us, and would I hire them back or not? And you can't go any further than that, because if you do, if they find out, they're going to come back and, you know, and sometimes they go, well, off the record, just be very careful. Just be very careful. But there was that onboarding. There was never any of that. Today, you may have to go do some tests. You may do some personality tests.
Sometimes
even before you get hired.
Yeah.
And those are all okay, and that's part of it. And
well, it's so hard to find people nowadays, Scott, that many people have to use recruiters, and those can be very well worth it too. Just have someone go out there, find you the right candidate. Be careful, though. As we've said with everything, how much are you paying for this service?
Right.
I had this doctor once pay like $50,000 plus to find the right associate candidate, and the associate only stayed there for like 6 months. So that wasn't very well worth it. So make sure you're not grossly overpaying for it, but that can be a big time saver, money saver from your end on finding the right person, especially in today's market where it's tough to find
very tough.
staff.
Yeah, it's tough finding people. Because, I mean, I know in Charlotte, there's a group called Charlotte Dental Peeps. And it's if you're looking for a hygienist or an assistant.
Oh, really?
It's a great place to post. But you have no idea who's walking in your door. And now there are some staffing companies that are doing some of that stuff. You pay them, and I would rather do that. But sometimes you get desperate, as you said. But you want to make sure when you're hiring somebody that you're doing the right things, and that you're going through the steps that you need to go through. And again, we're trying not to make it too complicated.
No.
But the bigger the practices, the more complicated it's going to get. And
like you said, it's the right staff can make such a huge difference. When I'm talking with people who have the right staff, life just seems to go a little easier. When people don't have the right staff, every day is a bit of a grind. And I like what you said earlier about if you get a bad apple in the office, that can be super problematic. I mean, I saw this growing up in my dad's practice too.
Right.
It's you get a bad apple in there, causes a lot of issues. They might turn someone else into a bad apple. So the bad apples
or they'll go, why is this person getting away with this stuff when I don't?
Yes. So ideally look, not everyone's going to be an A+ employee, but as long as you have a couple A+s and maybe some B+s.
A lot of B+s.
That's okay.
But when you start getting the C's
if you
and
get
the
the
D's,
C's, that's problematic.
Those people need to go. Now, as we're talking about that, let's talk about the termination. We've been talking about hiring a lot and making sure you're doing your homework and you understand all of the things that you need to do to have a good, fair HR policy. And you can write it what you want to provide. You don't want to provide health insurance? Great. You don't want to provide X, Y, or Z. You don't want to give vacation or whatever. However you do it, you earn PT, personal time off. You earn that, or all of that is your decision. But you then have to apply that fairly to every person that comes along.
Yeah.
If you've been here longer, maybe you get more vacation. Again, spell it out in the policy manual. All of those things need to apply. I know when we got bought, the policy changed. I used to let my employees get their vacation from day one. So when we started January 1, you were eligible for 2 weeks of vacation or 3 weeks of vacation, depending on how long you've been with me. Well, with the DSO, that was not their policy. You had to earn it. And that's the way most companies are.
Yeah.
So
Accrue
it wasn't, I was probably being really nice and lenient. But so that changed. And again, it was all spelled out. But let's go to the termination piece of this in today's world. So what do you think the opportunities of being sued if somebody gets mad at you?
I think there are a lot higher, Scott, and that's where I think
do you think there's a lot of lawyers out there ready to take that case?
Absolutely. I think you need to protect yourself. You need to protect yourself. You never know if someone's going to be mad at you for something. So if you're going to let someone go, really think about it. Put the right steps in place. Document everything,
and
right? If things aren't being done that are clear in your policy, document that they're not happening. Because if you go to terminate someone and there's no documentation of anything they did, let's say wrong, then you might open yourself up to some litigation there. But yes, you have to be careful.
And again, times have changed. I was talking to Liam, our producer, who earlier, and I was just telling the story of, again, times have changed and you got to do things the right way. Back in the day, I was still doing the right thing, but I had a great employee that we had a morning meeting. We were supposed to be there at quarter to 7 every morning. We would review the schedule, get ready, and we would see our patients at 7. I didn't want everybody showing up at 7 and we saw the patient at 7:15. We were not doing our job.
Yeah.
And she used to come in 2 minutes, 3 minutes late. It was just consistent, and I'd just say, you need to be here, you need to be here, you need to come. And finally, I just had it. And I told her, I grabbed her, she came in late. I left the meeting with her, walked into my office, and said, if you do this again, I'll fire you on the spot. And I walked out, and I left her standing in my office.
How'd that go, Scott?
It went great. It went absolutely perfect. She was never late again. But I didn't do it the right way in today's world because I could have probably been sued for a lot of things. One, and I wasn't wrong. She had been doing something wrong. I'd never documented it. We'd never written it down because that wasn't just part of our policy.
Yeah.
We hadn't written it. I didn't have another witness. I didn't have my office manager with me. I just was kind of. She was completely in the wrong. We're still great friends today, but I just didn't do it the right way. And if I'd fired her, and she came back at me, I had zero grounds.
Yeah.
For the right thing. And so we would say, then you document everything. You document it and they sign it. And, at first it was probably a pretty hard thing for me to do because it would be, you cannot be late anymore. Even if it was a great employee and it was like I sometimes felt like I was nitpicking.
Yeah.
But but part of it was being fair, but it was also, we're going to document it, or you're not helping with doing instruments. We've asked you to help, the sterilization with instruments, and we're hearing that you're not participating in doing this. And we would have them sign it. And you think through, am I creating some animosity or am I creating some? But again, part of that was if it keeps going on and you had to get rid of something. I mean, this again, another funny, crazy story. You come into my office, there was the front desk person who greeted every patient. And I had this one employee that came, we just hired her. She had come from the gym and literally taken her hair, put it up in like a little ponytail on the top of her head, she looked like a damn mess, looked like she had kind of come from the gym. And I was just irate. You want to go to the gym? Super. I went to the gym. I ran in the mornings, but I got cleaned up. I took a shower. Because she was the face of my office as you walked in. And I went up to my office manager and said, if she comes in like that, again, tell her if she comes in like that again, I'll fire her. And we did. She went and told her. And I don't think this is going back far enough.
Yeah.
We probably didn't document it. There were some other issues going on, but that was the one that kind of triggered me.
Yeah. But like you said, Scott, it's like that might not fly nowadays.
So we would have in today's manual a whole appearance thing.
Yeah.
And we did. Your nails are, if you want to have nail polish, your nails are polished properly, not they're cracked and chipped. And piercings were okay. They weren't back in the day. We didn't worry about piercings and tattoos and the such. But if you don't want those showing, my stepson's in the Navy. He's got a fair amount of tattoos, as do a lot of them. But there were some places, I know one, he was stationed in Japan. They were not allowed to go to some of the public pools without a long sleeve shirt on. Mm-hmm. It was just part of the things that were written. So they had to cover stuff up. And even probably while he was working, there were certain times that stuff just had to be covered up.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that things are documented. So the world is a changing place. I don't know where it'll be 10 years from now. I'm not sure it's going to get any easier. But you want to make sure that you're spelling these things out, that you're documenting what's going on. If you have a good employee, we used to put commendations in their files. Thank you for going above and beyond. We got this great note from this patient. Their file wasn't just a crappy do list. It was also, you're doing a good, we wanted more of that, and we had a lot of that. But I think if you've got those employees that are not performing well, it could be, hey, listen, your production as a hygienist is, and I used to track it, and I had these conversations with my staff, is you're not taking, you're not, and we wrote this up with one of my hygienists, amazing hygienist, great staff. She was underproducing because she wasn't taking x-rays. Mm-hmm. And she was creating some liability for me, and we wrote it up a number of times, and until she fixed that. I wasn't going to write it up 20 times, but a few times we said, but we tracked those things. So if you're seeing those, you're tracking them and you're having a conversation and you're documenting it. One, because you want to protect your practice, because if the practice is getting sued, who's getting sued?
You.
Not the hygienist. And even if they're wonderful people, they've got to do what you need them to go do. And so if their staff are not doing those, they're underperforming or they're not doing what you need them to do, you document it. I need you to do this. And if they're still not doing that, you're now creating the grounds for a termination. Hopefully you don't have to, but you will.
Yeah.
You will have to terminate people. It's just a fact of life.
Yep.
Most of them are going to be great if you spend time on the front end.
Yeah.
You'll hopefully find better people, but you're not going to put yourself at risk on the back end.
Yeah.
When you've got that.
Yeah.
And again, there's lots of, I think, in closing, I think we'd recommend, hiring. There's lots of online resources today. Don't just take, as we've said through all of our episodes, don't just take the first one that pops up on your feed, let's say on social media, when you type in Googling for, dental HR companies. Have a conversation with two or three of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
And find the one, and most of the time, is it going to be the cheapest one?
No, I think there's always 3 levels to services. You got the cheapest, but you're probably going to get what you pay for. There's the ones that are way too expensive, and there's always the ones in the middle where, look, it's going to cost you money, but it's going to save you money in the long run.
It's kind of like dentists, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got dentists that are in every PPO, and they can still be good dentists, but they're doing something. And you have dentists that are complete fee for service, and then you have some that maybe have 1 or 2, fee for service, whether you're getting your full fee for everything.
Yeah.
And so there's different levels of service. Make sure that it's geared for you. And as we've said before, if you start with one, your practice may need to move beyond one company to another to get something more sophisticated as you grow. You go from 6 employees to 15 employees, you probably have some different needs.
Yeah. All right, Scott, I think that's all we need to say about HR.
Yeah. Just make sure you're asking the right questions, and make sure you're protecting yourself with good advice.
All right. Well,
thanks.
Great having you here, and we look forward to the next episode.
Mario. We'll see you guys next time.
Until next one.